Okay, thank you. So welcome to building and running a diversity-focused SRE internship program for SRE. My name is Andrew Ryan. I'm production engineer at Meta. Production engineering is essentially what we call SRE at Meta. I've been at Meta for almost 13 years, and I've been in this industry for over 20. I've had many job titles. I've been at many places. I've seen SRE called many different things. So I'm going to use the terms SRE and production engineering interchangeably throughout this talk. If your company or job description calls it something different, that's fine, because if you're here today and you're listening to my talk, as far as I'm concerned, you're an SRE. Because what I want to talk about today, and I want to emphasize, is what brings us together and how we can build a future for our field that's vibrant, growing, and inclusive, where we can change the course of people's lives by introducing them to a field that is both interesting and rewarding, just as my life was changed way many years back when I got my first job as an SRE. Today we're going to talk about the program that we came up with, the problem we're facing, and the results that we've gotten. I'm going to offer you both a blueprint and hopefully some inspiration to go out and try this yourselves at your organization. It's no secret that our diversity, especially gender and ethnic diversity, is a problem in this industry. That's true at Meta. That's true everywhere I've ever been. But what's changed in recent years is the willingness of companies and society at large to acknowledge and work on the problem, and no longer accept the status quo. So as you can see, 3/4 of tech employees at Meta are men. 90% are either white or Asian. And at Meta, we've established concrete, publicly visible, company-level goals for improving our diversity, and we've published these. 5 or 10 years ago, I think we might have said, too big of a problem, we can't do anything about it, we're giving up, but not anymore. And I'd also like to just point out that we're not just chasing some arbitrary diversity metric. We really believe that this diversity is important for our company-level goals. We need to have people with different backgrounds to connect the world, build products that represent the people of the entire world. So to improve diversity in any meaningful way, we have to bring more people into this industry. And we have to do that. The place to do that is in early career hiring. So you might think, well, that sounds straightforward. Just start sending your recruiters to schools that have more diverse student bodies and just start interviewing there and hiring people from there. Well, it turns out this doesn't work. So why doesn't it work? Well, there's four main problems. So the first problem is interest. People don't know what SRE is. If you go out to a school, sure, they know what software engineering is, they know that's a job, but SRE is a niche enough field that it doesn't have a high degree of awareness among students. The second problem is people don't know the skills to become an SRE. Many schools don't even have an operating systems class or a security class or a network class, or let alone any of the sort of things like reliability engineering or chaos engineering or any of these other things. So that makes it difficult to just even get motivated or understand. And this dovetails into the third problem, which is interview skills. So passing a tech interview at a big company like Meta is not easy. It's a very specific skill, and it's a high bar for interviewing. And if you haven't been exposed to it, if you haven't practiced, if you don't know what's expected of you, you're probably not going to do very well. And then lastly is the issue of access. If you're looking at most schools in the world, they've never sent a person to a big tech company like Meta. So to them, it's like science fiction in terms of what does it take to get a job there. They've never seen or heard of anybody that's gotten a job out of school there. So it's just a thing for somebody else to do. You can't be what you can't see. So how does early career hiring work at Meta? Well, most early career hires at Meta are former interns, and many are from the top CS schools. So here's a diagram showing kind of how that works at a high level. So we go out and recruit at these top CS schools around the country and interview people. They pass our interviews. They come to Meta as interns, where they spend a summer. They're great. They're awesome. I love them. We have a bunch of former SRE, production engineering interns, in fact, in this audience right now. And then they go back to their schools. And what do they do there? Well, first of all, they're examples. The underclass people are seeing, oh, wow, look, that's possible. I can go get a job at Meta. And they can also give them tips about how to interview, or what's required of the job. What's the job really like? And then on top of that, these former interns then come to Meta as full-time employees, where they form alumni networks inside of Meta. They also will go back to their schools and help recruit. All in all, this forms a very powerful self-reinforcing network effect that over time makes it much more likely that students from these schools will get jobs at Meta. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it does limit our diversity to the diversity of the schools these top schools that we're recruiting from. So we decided for us the biggest leverage point was to go after early career hiring, specifically helping students get internships. Ideally at Meta, if not at some other tech company. We decided to do this by creating a pre-internship fellowship program with a diverse group of about 100 college students that we would recruit and prepare them for an SRE internship at Meta. So the fellowship aspect of this program is important. Interns are considered full-time employees while they're at Meta. And because they're actual employees, you can't, and we don't, have any preference based on anything like ethnicity or gender or anything like that. But a fellowship program is legally considered a scholarship program. And for a scholarship, you can set whatever criteria you want for the scholarship. There's no restrictions. So that's why we decided to go with a fellowship program. Our fellows would not be Meta employees, and we would get a partner to administer the program and distribute the funds. So this gives us more flexibility in recruiting diverse participants. Okay, so what would such a program look like? I've been training SREs for a long time, and we decided that our program needed to combine the three aspects, so there's three areas that I think are most important in training SREs. So what does it take to be a successful SRE? First area is knowledge. You need the core foundational knowledge to be an SRE. You need to know about operating systems and databases and containerization and troubleshooting and all the different techniques that we have to master in order to do our jobs. You also need to know about SRE culture. What I mean by SRE culture is how to think like an SRE. So concepts such as reliability, release management, incident management, all the various things that SREs do, the way that we think. And finally, you need mentorship. So remember back to you can't be what you can't see. What does a career path look like in SRE? What are the different ways that you can go get into this industry? Practical tips for getting started. And then sometimes you just need that encouragement or that little extra push that says yeah, you can do it. You can get through this. So okay, given these three aspects, how can we create an actual program from this? So what we decided to do is create a 12-week fully remote summer program. The remote aspect was kind of a no-brainer because, remember, it's early 2021. No one's been to the office for a year. Our badges don't even work. We can't get into the building. So remote was the only option. Actually, I think this was a good idea overall because I think it helped us recruit participants that might not have been able to travel otherwise. So we decided on a 12-week format and to combine technical curriculum, interview practice, and professional mentoring as kind of the core pieces. Along the way, every week, we also wanted to have presentations where we would have panel discussions and presenters from industry, and both within and outside of Meta, come and talk about their careers and their life in SRE. We also wanted them to prepare a final project that would allow them to tie together everything they learned in a practical way, as well as to provide them some kind of a portfolio for going out and interviewing. And lastly, but not least, we wanted the students to work together in teams. So being a successful SRE, especially at a large company, means working in teams, means working well in teams. And that was a very important part of what we wanted to do. It's also, I think, a good way for people to encourage each other, help each other, and just generally sort of learn more about what they're doing. Okay, sounds great, right? But how? Remember, early 2021, we have no program. We have no curriculum. We have no partners. We have no students. We haven't recruited anyone, and it's February, and we want to have people starting this by June. Oh, and there's a pandemic raging, and we're all stuck at home and dealing with all kinds of stuff. Okay, so we decided that, classic SRE, we've got to break this problem down into three main parts to build this program. So the first pillar was the meta team. Now you might be thinking that this is an enormous team, that we had resources that were only available at large companies, or that this is impossible to do. It's actually not true. Our core team at Meta was 4 people. We had a business program manager who was our project manager and ran all the business side of this. We had the program coordinator, which is me, kind of just jack of all trades in every aspect. And then we had a curriculum coordinator in charge of our technical curriculum. And finally, a mentor coordinator to coordinate the approximately dozen mentors that we had for the program. In addition, we had a cast of characters, supporting characters outside of Meta, like our recruiting partners. We had our various speakers and panelists, and then, as I mentioned, the dozen or so mentors that we had as well. And finally, last but not least, our executive sponsor. So you do need somebody in a program like this to sign checks and remove organizational roadblocks, that sort of thing. So that's the core team. Second pillar was our curriculum partner. Remember, we have 4 months. We can't develop an entire comprehensive curriculum in 4 months, especially not doing our other day jobs as well. So we reached out to the Linux Foundation, who, as you may know, is a nonprofit devoted to the advancement of open source and Linux. As it turns out, they have some really good training that they've built up on Linux, and they were willing to give us a royalty-free license to use this content, which is normally costs money, for our program, because they thought that this program was important for the industry. And if you're wondering how did we get them to do this, we just asked them. We just went up to them and asked them. And this is such an important problem in the industry. I think you're going to find there's a lot of allies out there that are willing to help you if you're willing to put in the time and do the work. So thanks to the Linux Foundation, we had some curriculum. Our last pillar was the program administration partner. And for this pillar, this was the partner that we're going to use, as I referenced before, to actually kind of recruit the students, to do the day-to-day program running, disperse the funds, and just kind of generally tie together all the curriculum in a cohesive way to administer it to the students. And so for this piece, we decided to go with a company called Major League Hacking. They have been around for about 10 years, and they got their start running university hackathons. And so they have a lot of relationships with existing universities and students. And we felt that it was a really great fit for us to use them as partner for this program. So what did the fellowship outline look like? Well, some of our fellows had never even used basic tools when they got here, like Git. So we had to start at the beginning. And throughout the weeks, we went through all of the basic sort of SRE foundational knowledge pieces that you see here. Two sort of things that I'd like to highlight on this slide. The first one was week 7, which was career week. So for career week, we actually devoted the entire week to getting a job. And the biggest part of that was mock interviews. We actually gave the fellows a chance to all interview with either somebody from MLH or a Facebook Meta engineer, and then we would see their results. So that was really informative for us, and I think super useful for the students, because they actually got a real interview, a real tech company interview. And then we also had them work on their LinkedIn and resume so that they could appear more professional. And the last thing I want to highlight is the last 4 weeks were devoted to the final project, where they got to put together everything that they learned from the first 8 weeks and build a Flask Python web app, Dockerize it, and deploy it to a cloud, so actually see it running. So go through the whole cycle of building something, deploying it, running it in a cloud. So pretty cool. Now earlier I mentioned the teamwork and how important we think it is for students to work in teams. So how does that actually work in the fellowship interaction? So this is a sample pod. Remember, there's 10 pods total. Each pod is around 10 students. And this is all virtual. So we've got each pod organized into some smaller groups of 3 or 4. They communicate over Discord. Then every day they have a stand-up with their pod leader, which is from MLH. They do that over Discord and Zoom. And then once a week or so, they would meet with their mentor from Meta. And that would be scheduled over Calendly, and then it would happen over Zoom. So this is kind of how they did the day-to-day interaction. So that's the program. Let's talk about the results. Really super, super proud of our fellows. They worked incredibly hard, and they had a great experience. So as you can see, 95% graduated, meaning they completed all the instructional modules and stayed till the end. And 77% spent at least 25 hours a week on the program. So really great. And then as you see, something like a 96% satisfaction rate, and 76 of the 91 fellows that graduated applied for SRE type jobs afterwards. So really nice to see that. The other thing we wanted to know is, do the fellows, when they got through this program, do they really understand what SRE is? Do they understand what it's going to take if they want to stay in this field or get jobs? And I'm super proud of this as well. So look at these numbers from week 1. Most of the people coming into this program had no idea what SRE looked like as a career path. They had no idea what skills they needed to be successful as an SRE, and they didn't think they had those skills. And then you look at the week 12 results, clearly it's a big difference. Our students were getting a very good idea of what they needed to do. Not everybody felt they had those skills by the end, but at least they knew what they were. Okay, but you probably want to know the big one, were they able to get jobs? Because after all, this was kind of the stated goal of the program. Well, I'm happy to say that the answer is yes. Our data here is a little bit less robust because we did this through a combination of surveys and tracking the fellows' LinkedIn profiles. But we estimate that about 50% of our fellows have gotten jobs for this summer in tech. And about 23% actually have SRE-type jobs, meaning like their title is something like one of those slides, titles from one of the earlier slide. But over half are reporting using SRE-type skills in their jobs, which is great. So maybe their title is software engineer, but they're doing release management or deployment or something like that they learned here. And as you can see, 87% felt that this fellowship gave them a leg up in interviewing. And these are some of the confirmed companies that we have SRE-type placements at. So Meta, Microsoft, Oracle, Intuit, Intel, Tata, and Vanguard. So really proud of our fellows. They were able to turn their experience in our fellowship into real jobs in the industry. Okay, so spoiler alert, we are running the program again this year in 2022, and there will be some information on how to apply on the last slide. So I will have that for you later. But what are some things that we learned? What needs improvement for this year? Well, the number one feedback we got from our fellows is that they didn't understand the why of what we were teaching them while we were teaching them. So for example, we'd be teaching them about these concepts, containerization. Well, why do I need to know about this? What does it do? There's a lot to learn. And the way that we're going to deal with that this year is have the project be a continual thing throughout the year. So instead of devoting just the last 4 weeks of the program, they'll start the project right away. So for example, at the same time as they're learning about containerization, they're actually going to be Dockerizing their own app. And maybe it's a hello world or something, but they're going to be they're going to be using those things in practice the whole time. The second learning was that we needed more interview practice. Fact of life, in this industry, at this time, if you can't pass coding interviews especially, it's very difficult to get a job. If you can pass coding interviews, you can get a lot of jobs. And other types of interviews as well. So we're really going to focus a lot every week on interview practice. I mean, I know it's a little bit of an artificial game, but the fact is you got to play it. So improvement number 3. With a program this large, we have like 100 fellows divided into 10 pods. There's another 10 mentors and 10 pod leaders and all this. There's a lot of people involved. It's really easy to have some people slip through the cracks. Sometimes even an entire pod just won't get a certain concept or have trouble with a certain week's curriculum. And we don't want to leave anyone behind. So this year, we're going to institute pod level surveys every week to make sure that people are getting the material and that we're not losing anyone along the way. And lastly, better recruiting support. This is a little bit of an embarrassment on our front, but even at Meta, when fellows applied at the end of the fellowship, we had no way of tracking them through our recruiting system. I mean, this is just big company, stuff where we get a lot of applicants and we didn't have a good system set up. So that was a bit of a surprise and a disappointment to us. And then in addition, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't have great data on where they all went after if they didn't get jobs at Meta, where they all ended up. So we're going to institute a much stronger program this year for tracking the fellows through our own recruiting process at Meta, as well as finding out where they go. If they don't end up at Meta, making sure we know where they ended up, what kind of jobs they got. So that's the needs improvement. Oops. All right. So as SREs, we're always thinking to ourselves, or we should be, how do I scale this thing 10x or 100x, right? We're really proud of our program here, but it's only 100 students a year. And it's just not practical for us to get that a lot larger. We're going to run it again this year, as I mentioned. If this goes well, we'd like to also expand it. It was US only, North America only. We'd like to expand it to Europe and the rest of the world as well. But still, we're limited in how much capacity we have, even at a big company like Meta, to run a program like this and hire interns. So what opportunities do we have then? Because we think this is an awesome idea for the industry. So for the first opportunity to scale, I'd like to refer back to that original diagram where I showed you how early hiring works at the top CS schools. Well, there's no reason, I believe, that we can't create such similar networks at other schools and schools that have more diversity in their student population. So if we can get enough students to seed a program, seed the knowledge base, seed the people that have this experience and that can go back and create these self-reinforcing networks, that's a potentially really powerful area that we can exploit. Second, we'd like to run this program, or something very much like it, at other organizations. I know there are people out there in this audience, both virtually and in person, that have authority over budgets and have authority over hiring. So I'm talking to you right now. And this program can scale, right? We can do this. We're willing to help you. Come talk with us. We are here this week, all week. Find me. There's some folks from MLH as well that you can talk to. So let's see what we can get going. And finally, the last one, this is sort of maybe a little bit longer term thing, but we'd like to consider some way of, kind of quote unquote open sourcing this program, possibly under the USENIX banner. Because this is an industry problem. Like ultimately, we're all paying the price and we all need for our issues, and we all need to tackle this together if we're going to solve it. So that's something that we're considering long term, but we want to really prove this out at Meta and maybe a few other places first. So how can you help? Well, number one, hire our fellows. If you see out there on a resume or on a LinkedIn that somebody went to the MLH production engineering fellowship sponsored by Facebook or Meta. Sorry, it's a long set of keywords there, but give them a call, give them a reach out. They were trained by us. Maybe, maybe they know something, maybe they don't, but I'd like to think they do. Second is supporting a similar project at your company. So again, those of you out there who have some authority over hiring and budgets, or influence in diversity or inclusion, consider sponsoring a program. A lot of things out there seem impossible until they've been done. And we did it, and we can show you how. So talk to us. And then finally, I'd love to have, if there's folks interested in speaking or panelist opportunities or have ideas or want to share curriculum, we'd like to talk to you. In our speaker series last year, we had numerous participants from outside of Meta. I think it's a great chance to show people, like, from starting in SRE, where can you go as a career? Where does it take you? What are places, what are different types of environments like, and what are different types of careers look like? So there's there'll be a contact information for us at the end here where you can get in touch with us. Oops, sorry, something went, oops, black here. All right, there it is. Okay, so that's it for my talk. I would like to say, first of all, thank you to all of the people at Meta for everybody that helped with this program. Thank you to MLH, Major League Hacking, for all of your work, and the Linux Foundation. Thank you to USENIX for having me here, and all of you for attending. And last but not least, I really want to thank our fellows so much for being so brave and taking a chance with us during the worst year ever on a program that we had not really put together. Well, we were putting it together as we were constructing the bridge as they were driving across it. So thanks so much to everyone who's sort of stuck with us on this. We are running, as I mentioned, this fellowship again in 2022. If you want to apply or encourage others to apply, follow MLH on their socials, which are there. Got Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and a web link. If you want to reach the Meta team, the core Meta team that works on this program, there's an email address you can use to contact us, and we would love to hear from you. So with that, I am going to open up the floor for questions, and thank you very much.